I was with my cousin. We're at this party, and it was a real tight list. He wanted to come, and he's a really good looking guy. So, and there's girls at the door. So in my head, I'm thinking if he really wants to come, he's not going to have a problem getting in here. Those girls are going to like swoon all over him. It'll be fine. So he texted me that he's like downstairs at this hotel. We were having this party, and I went down, he came up, and we're all hanging out, and we ended up having the best time. He was not at all what I thought he was. We had just such an intense chemistry together, but it was so much fun.
All right, Kelly said, "Put a little love in your heart." Oh, that's a good song. That is
a really great song.
Let's sing it again. Put a little love in your heart. But are we talking about love, or are we talking more about lust today?
Well, I actually want to talk about chemistry and like what that means.
Like, chemistry. Okay, so that's like connecting more in the love space or the romance or the dating space, but just in general, how we connect with people and maybe how we do it different stages, connection. It's really weird. I've heard people, and I don't know if this is what you're going to talk about on today's episode, but I've heard people say like that whole, like, when you're 25, you could have like thousands of friends, it feels like, but after like 35, like you just don't really enjoy as many people as you once did. Isn't that kind of funny? I don't know if that's exactly what you're talking about in terms of connection, but I feel like connections are different based on what stage of life you are. You tell me.
Yeah,
and
I agree with that.
You tell me, don't always say we're over 40, but it is paramount to the conversation a little bit, right?
Yeah. Well, I was having some girl talk with my girlfriends the other day, and we were just kind of talking about dating and kind of, some of the best dates we've been on, some of the worst dates we've been on, and the connections we've had with people. And it reminded me of this one person that I had met. So I'm gonna give you guys a little story time. So I was out, I live in Austin now, and years ago I was in LA, but I'd come to Austin for South by Southwest for events with the company I was working with. So I go to this bar for this party to meet a potential new contact to do stuff with. And as I'm chatting with her,
for the record, you sound like you're doing a casting tape for like the Real World Austin. You know what I mean? Like in terms of the story, I'm on the edge of my seat. Sorry, I didn't mean to bug in.
No, you're fine.
Hold on, like say it again, and especially with the close up, that's what it's giving. Like, hi, I'm Kelly.
Okay, so let me tell you what happened. No, so I walk into this bar. I'd never met this woman before, so I meet her, and she's at this table with these two other guys, and that were her clients because that had styled her event. So she introduces me to them. We're all kind of hanging out. And one of the guys was just one of the most beautiful people I'd ever seen up close. Seriously. Tall, dark, handsome, all the stuff. But he was a little bit arrogant. So when we first started talking, I was just like, no, okay, I'm good. So I kind of, move on, and I'm just having a conversation with her. And I had two friends of mine that were with me. And they, those two girls were talking with the guys, and I was doing my business talk or whatever. Then we started talking about food, and he jumps into my conversation. It's like, oh, I'm really a foodie. I want to go and have brunch. What are some good places? And I had done PR for some restaurants in Austin, so I was giving him suggestions. And he's like, yeah, well, why don't we meet up tomorrow and go to brunch? You can take me to your spot or whatever. And I was like, okay, cool. Just kind of blowing him off, like, yeah, right, dude, whatever. Because it was just kind of one of those LA moments. And if you've ever been in that situation in any kind of work event, like, you know what I mean. It's just kind of a BS moment where you're like, sure, we'll hang out, whatever. So fast forward to later that night, I'm at another event, and he emailed me, but it was really weird because he emails me from like a coworker's email with this whole thing that like my email's broken and can you text me? And I didn't really understand it, didn't pay attention. And then I didn't text him until the next day. And I was like, oh, sorry, I reread your email. I didn't really get it. So, hey, yeah, we can go to brunch on Sunday. Here's the spot. I'll, see you soon. Later on, he texts me back and he's like, where are you at? What are you doing? And granted, I met this guy like the day before. Don't really know each other. Didn't even like him when I first met him, really. So I told him I was at this party, and he's like, well, should I go over there? And I'm just like, Okay. So I
Wait,
was like, yeah, sure.
in terms of you didn't like him when you first met him, is that because you
Mhm.
were in heavy work mode? So there was a little bit of a, you weren't even really looking or open to that. Does
Well,
that have anything?
it wasn't even about like romantic. I just didn't like his vibe at first. Like he
Mm.
came across to me like a
Oh,
little bit
arrogant.
full of himself. So I just wasn't
Okay.
even I just I automatically switched off and was like, I
Hmm.
don't like I'm done. I'm not paying attention. Not that I don't care and like being a hater or anything like that. It was just like that's just kind of how my personality goes. Like if I don't feel a cool like I'll just turn off and I'm just
A
like done with it.
connection. Yeah.
So, but I guess he felt a different way because he,
Mm.
like reached out a couple times and made it a point for us to hang out. So I was with my cousin. We're at this party and it was a real tight list. He wanted to come and he's a really good looking guy. So, and there's girls at the door. So in my head, I'm thinking if he really wants to come, he's not going to have a problem getting in here. Those girls are going to like swoon all over him. It'll be fine. So he texted me that he's like downstairs at this hotel. We were having this party and I went down, he came up and we're all hanging out and we ended up having the best time. He was not at all what I thought he was. We had just such an intense chemistry together, but it was so much fun. Just like drinking and hanging out and just genuinely having a good time. It just was light and fun. And it was been a long time since I'd really like hung out with somebody like that. It was just really cool. Have you ever had like an experience like that?
Well, first I'm listening to your story, and yes, you are casted for the Real World Austin.
Oh, it's not done yet. I'm just asking in between. I have a little bit part left. It's really
Well,
like
okay,
interesting.
I was gonna ask you a couple things in terms of how it does feel like as I kind of stated, like 25, 30, you are more
Mhm.
open to all of it's kind of your lifestyle is even different. It's like the same
Mhm.
way you'd be out at a bar till 3 a.m. You'll still do that at our age, but you won't do it as much. So I feel like
Yeah.
there's probably always an openness with like that exciting connection, but I don't know that it happens as much. But what was interesting about your story, and I'm trying to think about like stories that I've had that are similar to that, like that
Mhm.
very like quick, fast, intense, like feels like everything. What's
Mhm.
interesting about yours is if I've had that, it's been the opposite, meaning it was from the jump. It was like, ooh, it's all the feelings immediate.
Yeah.
What makes your story kind of intriguing to me, and I'm like wanting to ask more questions, is you were like, absolutely not. He's full of
Yeah.
himself. So how does somebody make you, Kellie, who's a very like headstrong person, you know what you want? How does the next day it change so much? And of course, this is where I'm eating my popcorn because it sounds like it changed a lot.
It really did. And I guess I was just really became intrigued because I really thought that this guy had zero interest in me.
Hmm.
And also it probably plays into just some of my own insecurities
Mm.
because he was like a model looking guy. And I
Yeah.
just not that I haven't ever dated like really attractive people. I just don't ever see myself that way. So
Hmm.
then seeing the type of girl he was talking to at the bar when I very first met him, I was like, okay, cool. Like that's his type of girl, like whatever.
Okay.
And these are things I think about in my head in about 2.3 seconds. All of that goes
Yeah.
through my head the minute I meet somebody. That's just, I was single. I am single. That's kind of how it goes. I don't know if you analyze people that way, but I tend to. Like if I find someone
Hmm.
attractive, I kind of do it like I don't know. It's kind of like I do a
Oh, like a
scan,
judgment.
right?
Oh, wow.
Sort of, but I'll like do a scan and I like look around. It's like, how is he holding himself? How are
Hmm.
his friends acting? How are he treating his
Hmm.
friends? What kind of people is he talking to? What does he seem interested in? And I literally do that all in a
Hmm.
matter of seconds. And
Yeah.
it'll go through my head and I'll be like, or no, or see if I want to. But with this one, I was automatically just kind of like super attractive dude. I can totally appreciate that. Let's
Yeah.
move on. In
Okay.
my head.
Can I
Mhm.
just ask a question as a 20-year friendship with you? So I know a lot. You know a lot. I know a lot.
Yeah.
We know a lot. We're friends for a long time. That's why our podcast is so good. Brought to you by Viridian Row, by the way. We'll talk about
Hmm.
that in a second. But can I ask you? You said insecurity, and it sounded like you were really going into the space of like insecure based on like assessing like what kind of girl he would date. Do you fit that category? Just a
Hmm.
question.
Hmm.
Do you also feel like you ever had insecurities because of your sort of like high powered job? Your job was publicity for these amazing huge brands that get you into this party, that party, et cetera, et cetera. You work for all these giant companies. So was a little bit of the insecurity that you, this is just a general maybe, did you ever worry about people's intentions when they suddenly give a lot to you, Kellie?
Yes, but that was more of a secondary thing. For
Mm-hmm.
me, mostly it's because I don't fit like the Barbie doll mode of what
Mm-hmm.
uh really kind of what a high powered publicist is supposed to look like, or what, at least in my own mind,
Oh,
right? Because I
okay.
was never, I have issues with my weight and, just different things. And I'm not really tall and all these little things that, girls go through and, everybody goes through. It's not just strictly for women, but,
Mm-hmm.
people go through when, it's a self image struggle, right? And I've
Mm-hmm.
always kind of had that. But the mask I would put on that made it easy for me to be out and be kind of more face forward and run up and talk to people that I felt a little intimidated by was because I put my publicist mask on. And it
Right.
was like somebody else is asking me to do it. I'm not doing it. So I'm not going to take it personal if
Yeah.
somebody's not feeling it, because that's not what I would make myself, that's not what I'm going into it for anyway, right? So it's a
Wow, that's a
whole
shell.
mental thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it always was for me.
Dude, this is so funny
So I
because
look at someone like that and I
mhm.
just, I just think,
Well, and I think on one hand you have your insane confident side, you, Kellie, you do. But I could see that part of it too. I'm thinking back to like certain career things I've done, and it's like that
mm-hmm,
sort of, I work in radio, the job is to entertain. So therefore
mm-hmm,
I don't really run the risk of embarrassing myself in terms of like if I do show some interest or whatever, or someone shows
yeah,
interest in me, it's like under the, oh well, I'm supposed to be entertaining, I'm supposed to be,
right,
charming and big energy and
mm-hmm,
great personality. But the real me, had I just walked in, I might be a little, not that we're different people, I'm not saying you were a different person, but you somehow, that mask so to speak, feels kind of good, right?
oh, absolutely. It's such a cool, it's like wearing a costume
Mm,
where you don't really have to put your whole self out.
yeah.
But on the flip side of it, then when people really were interested in me, I didn't get it.
Really?
Like
Okay.
then I was a little dense about it,
Okay.
because I was so used to always having to be charming, always having to be on, always having to get people to quote unquote like being around me for a business sense, that when
Oh,
they
right.
actually wanted to be around me personally, sometimes I would miss it. And it's like one of those that you have to really kind of and say, no, I like you, before I was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, oh, my
You
bad,
have to
okay.
feel worthy. Like so you have all that in your head, just not even like you're overthinking it, but you have a little bits of these things in your mind. But then you got to
Yeah.
get to that moment where you lock in and say, no, I'm worthy. So did that happen to you, as this
Well,
is
it's
sort of,
not even a worthy thing, because I never
oh, it's
thought
not?
about it like that. It was really, I just was like, it's, for lack of a better kind of way to say it, is like a blonde moment that it would really. I remember this quote in this movie, and it's a Rachel McAdams movie, and she's a TV show producer, but she works so much and she's so tied up with that, this guy likes her, and she says this thing is like, sometimes I don't get it until you're like, in my apartment trying to make out with me. And then I'm like, oh, you didn't really want to come see my record collection. You really liked me. And I feel like a lot of times I was, as silly as it sounds, kind of like dumb like that. Like I just
Yeah.
didn't get it. So when he's emailing me wanting to go to brunch and
Mm-hmm.
all that, I'm thinking he just wants to try to do events for the company that I work for.
Mm.
So he's trying to build a business relationship. I didn't even think more into it than that. So
So,
oh, go ahead.
well, no, at what stage do you start to like now say, oh, okay. And also start to be like reassessing your confidence, because now you've put that all aside. You're like, oh wait, he's
Yeah.
actually interested in me. That's one question. But then the other part is like, is this sort of like a love at first sight moment, because it was sort of not supposed to be, but then like all of a sudden things went really well? I mean, I know you mentioned at the beginning of the episode it was more about connection, but
Yeah.
it kind of feels like it went from like nothing to something, which does sort of feel a little in the space of love at first sight.
Well, here's the interesting thing about it, because when it actually flipped for me was, like I said, I was at the party with my cousin. So when he came up, I was busy and we had run out of something and I was having to deal with kind of a work crisis. So I left him there with her and they're
Mm,
talking. So I take off, I go do what I'm going to do. And then I come back and he goes off and like goes to the bar or does some, anyway, he like moves away and she's telling me, she's like, how long have you known this guy? And I was like, no, I just met him like yesterday. And she's like, it's so weird because he just told me that he just likes you so much and you're so cool and he's just gushing about you. She's like, it sounds like you guys have known each other forever. And I was going to ask you, how come you've never mentioned him before? And I just started laughing and I was like, really? We literally just met.
So while this is all happening fast,
thing. Yeah.
On the outside looking in, your cousin who's there sees or even hears from him. Like, does he express that?
Like he told her. I don't remember.
Okay.
I don't remember how it prompted, but she had said something, and he was telling her like, "Oh my gosh, I really like her. I hope we really stay friends, and can't wait to hang out with her back in Los Angeles." Like she's just going on and on and on.
Oh, because you're at Austin South by Southwest.
Yeah, and I wasn't there. Like I wasn't there. So they're having this conversation when I'm off doing, I don't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
So then I come back, he goes, and then she pulls me aside and she like tells me this, and I was just shocked. I was like, really?
Yeah.
And that's when I was like, huh. So that's when I started thinking about it in a different way. And we, just had like so much fun, and we were dancing and just like having a really great time, but just like a fun, innocent, just really connected time of enjoying the company of someone else without, always people want to talk to me about work. They always want to bring up, who do you know? What do you do? All that stuff. And we didn't have that. It was really just fun and light. And that was what was so refreshing and so much fun for me, because I didn't have to wear that PR face all night long. You know what I mean? Like I got to kind of take that off.
I feel like that's got to be the hardest for you with publicity, is that it's always like, even if, let's say it's you feeling the guy more than him being interested in you, it's like you got to worry about like his intentions. Is this just what I can do for him in terms of my job and the access that I have? You have to worry about that. But I'm glad you are, in this story at least, channeling in on your like, no, I'm like amazing, of course. But it is just so funny that things move so fast that you kind of don't even like have that openness, because you're such a worker. Yeah. And
it happened, like I said, within a matter of like a day, over a couple of emails. And by this point, we had really been hanging out with each other for like an hour.
Yeah.
So it was so fast, and I didn't really it just completely flipped it. And then I started looking at the whole situation differently. And then I became more open to actually appreciate what was going on.
Right.
And, and it could have gone the distance that evening, but for a whole bunch of reasons.
She said the distance.
I still regret that to this day sometimes. But
when you were more agile, when you were working it out. Yeah.
But that like begs the question though. Because to be honest, I don't know that I've ever been on his side of a situation like that. I can't remember a time where I actually met someone who was like instantly like, oh my gosh, like you are just such an awesome person, without that preconceived notion that I gave him when I first met him. Like, I don't know that I have ever been that open to really be able to be that vulnerable and say, hey, I appreciate everything that you are right now. And I just want to be in this moment the way that he was. And I really admired that about him.
Okay. Could it have been the travel aspect? So like there's an excitement. We both live in LA. If this does go and it is kind of like a moment, we can revisit in LA. So there's an excitement there. So that's one side of me wondering why it happened when it happened. I thought the end of the story, by the way, to be honest with you, even though we talk almost every day, I thought the end of the story was cut to he and I are getting married. No. I was like, is this the story she tells me she's married? No wonder she's not returning my text, her long-term friend for 100 years. Like, what was it? But
no.
So one hand of it is, I think the excitement is something that, yes, because I guess your question is like, has it happened to you and can it still happen? I think when you put yourself in situations, because I'm thinking about like a wedding I'm going to go to or whatever. And I'm like, ooh, at the wedding. And it's not even about who is going to be there. It's just the energy of a destination wedding. It's sort of like a chance to be a version of yourself, but like a little amplified. So I think the fact that he knew, because he lived in LA also.
Yeah.
So you didn't know him. You both live in LA. No. let's
we
have
met
a
in
little
Austin.
let's have a little fun, and if it goes, we can revisit. I think that to me is exciting. But the only other question I'm going to say is that something that just happens when you are in your, early 30s, late 20s? Like, can we
Well, I wasn't in my early 30s. I was in my late 30s. This was only like 5 years ago.
Oh, she's basically saying she still got it. Okay. Okay, then I'm being the lazy one who's saying that I feel like those exciting moments, I just am so about them back in the day. I just don't know that I'm that interested. But you weren't either. You were like shocked.
No,
It
I
kind of
wasn't.
happened. Yeah.
That's my point, is I feel like because I was so jaded and just so not
You were jaded. Are you gonna say that and own that? Wow.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Are we we all are though.
I think at some we get to that point because there's a rotating door of the same type of people that you're meeting, and then you start to stereotype them. At least I know I did.
Yeah.
Because it would just get categorized by people that, I was working with, and that kind of relationship, whatever that was. And you kind of put people in their categories. And that's what I started to do. Because when I first started it was like, we're all friends, but no, we're not friends. We're work friends or colleagues or contacts or whatever, but we're not friends. Like, not everybody's friends. So then everybody kind of goes into their pocket. So I absolutely was jaded with this. And like I said, I totally brushed him off, didn't give it a second thought until I looked and I didn't even, never in a million years did I think he was actually going to email me. And then he did, like, that same day. And I was just like, oh, okay, cool. But still, it took me until he made those comments to my cousin for me to even see anything other than just, this is somebody trying to get business. I really didn't.
Well, so many thoughts, and we will pick up on that. Kellie, if you don't mind, we do love to show love for our show, Difficult Podcasters. We have a really great time doing it. I guess over 45 episodes. It's been really fun with you. We've had this and many other conversations. So definitely go to the archives and check out the other ones. Kellie, if you can you give me a little information on Patreon? Let's talk about it.
On Viridian Row? Well.
Oh, did I say Patreon? I meant Viridian Row.
ViridianRow.com has been with us since the beginning. It is such a great small business. You can get really cool new vintage and resale items, and also customize t-shirts, hats, cups, bags, all kinds of cool stuff. So
I meant Viridian Row, our sponsor.
Small business.
This is what I meant. Viridian Row, where creativity never goes out of style.
That's right. ViridianRow.com. Check it out.
Why do you think I said Patreon? Because I was like selfishly thinking of my own Patreon, maybe?
Yeah, maybe.
Oh, what a dork.
Because I'm talking about chemistry and connections, and you're thinking about Patreon.
Well, don't I have a chemistry and connection with with Patreon and money? My two favorite. Listen, Kellie, my two favorite colors in terms of like green is Viridian for Viridian Row, and then green like Cash Money. So forgive me. Yes, you want to support, you support my Patreon, but you also support ViridianRow.com and all those good things too. You asked so many wonderful questions, and I don't know why. Maybe it's a crutch that I have, that I feel like, I love being over 40 years old, but I seem to not, like you said, oh, that was just a couple years ago. For me, I'm like, yeah, that could totally happen at this stage. But like right now, nah, I don't know. But I should open up to the idea that like, yeah, like you do kind of meet people and it gets exciting and it gets, you let the wall down a little bit and enjoy.
Granted, he was maybe like a good chunk younger than me. Which I forgot to mention. Yeah. So that could be the stages in life where he was at, the bright-eyed, wide-eyed, and hey, let's just lay it all out there because why not?
Right. Well, listen, if
I had already surpassed that. So
if he's in his early 20s and he finds an amazing Kellie, oh my God, I could see why, Kellie. So this is the part of the story that you got to own that. Like you're forgetting that like this is the exciting.
Maybe this is late 20. I don't know.
But meeting someone as cool as you after. So let's just say, like you said a second ago, he has all these really what'd you say, Barbie? You know, this kind of like stereotypical girl that he would go for. You just
But
were
that's
so
the thing is, I didn't even know if that was. That's just what he happened to be talking
okay.
to when I saw him. So
Yeah.
I don't even. I mean, if he was after me, clearly that's not his
I was
necessarily his
just
type.
I
But
was
yeah,
just giving you like it's so refreshing to know that
yeah,
you were refreshing for him, you know. So that's the part that you're just like, oh yeah, like it really, that's probably what it was, you know. You're so different, you're such a great communicator, you're so fun. Like I could see how if he is constantly like, you know, with bimbo number one and bimbo number two, and then Kelly
totally,
comes
yeah.
along, like, you know, like this. Yeah. So
And which was really, really nice for me, and definitely a confidence booster to be appreciated for who I was, not
mhm,
what, but who I was and am at that moment. Because when you are a strong, opinionated, very verbal, strong headed woman, you get a
mhm,
lot of hate for that
right.
in all aspects of it. And people always want you to kind of dumb yourself down a bit to make them more comfortable. And gotten, I had gotten pretty used to having to kind of not say too much with,
Mm.
for fear of that. And I'm
Can I ask
so
you a
glad that
question?
I kind of got out of that. Yeah.
So when you would go dating, was it kind of like a different version of yourself? Like your headstrong personality was needed for your career to succeed the way that it
Yeah.
did. I mean, I would hate to say it, but I guess this might be part of the truth is like, did you feel like you went into these dates, not with him, but just in general, where
Yeah.
you had to show a different side, a softer, like a,
Yeah.
it's weird because it almost sounds like,
And I wanted to, because
yeah.
I but then if I met somebody while I was working, they were attracted to the hardcore,
Okay. Okay.
So then when I gave the softer side, it was like, wait,
Yeah.
what? That's not what I signed up for.
Way
But
aside from
that's
the
really kind of
way aside from the dating part, like this is
mhm.
coming out of the dating part of it, but just evaluating like you or other really badass women that I knew who are just like really like confident or whatever. I just think there's that really unfortunate misconception that they always want to just be at 100, but like I'm not
Yeah.
just saying you only, but I know other women like yourself that like you appreciate you know the soft things too, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And even as I'm saying, like even as your friend, I've always been like, well, Kelly will get it done, and it's like, wait, Kelly's soft and has tears like the rest of us, you know. And I
Why do
don't
I
think,
always have to get it done?
why does Kelly always have to get it done? Yeah. Yeah. But isn't it weird? Like that's how we look up to you in that way. You know, I looked up to you because you're significantly older than me. So I was like, Kelly's like my much older sister in this
Yeah, no.
in this career.
No, sir. No, sir. You take that back right now.
Yeah,
That is
yeah.
not
No, but isn't
accurate.
that funny though that like the women who
Yeah.
really carry that strength along their whatever they got to do in terms of work and just to, I don't know, just to not deal with the
Yeah.
BS. It's like suddenly like no one ever checks on them. Like, how are you doing? You know?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and it's unfortunate, but it also is of our own making, because we couldn't be any other way.
Mm.
So it's like,
What do
what do you
you
do?
feel about even the concept of like dating and a little bit of an age gap? You're a strong, powerful woman. You've got your great career. And then you got this 25-year-old who I don't know what the catch is other than maybe he's like, you know, the hot 25-year-old. What is your thoughts on like just that dynamic? I mean, is anything to do with the fact that men and women mature differently? You know, just what's your overall thoughts on that? Because the criticism has always been really rough, but yet
Yeah.
Leonardo DiCaprio has been with the 22-year-old all the time, and no one really has too much of an issue with it as much.
Well, and that's the stereotype, right? It's always okay for the man to do it, but a woman does it, and it's a whole different thing. All it has is are negative connotations. And I am definitely, personally, I don't find too much in common with somebody that's significantly younger than me, only because there's not enough life lived for my taste to really have good conversation. And I've lived a really fast paced party life for my early years. So that's not really what I'm trying to do now. So it just wouldn't be something that worked for me. But a lot of people my age have it backwards. Their lives were more quiet and quaint and tame when they were younger. So now they want to live that party fun life that I already did. So I can see how that could be a really cool match, actually, because of sometimes you don't always want to be a grown up when you have to be a grown up. So why not? Girl, get it. Have fun. Who cares?
So you're saying maybe there's like, let's say like a divorcee, and
Right.
and this woman is now able to be on the dating scene for the first time in a long time. You're saying in that case, she got her own money. Let the juice loose and have fun.
I mean, why
is what you're
not?
saying.
Yeah,
okay.
and like, who are we to judge it? Because, like I said, when I was younger, most of my friends were getting married and having kids.
Mm-hmm.
Now that they're older, they're throwing parties all the time. Their kids are grown, so now they're doing all the stuff that I already did, and like I'm the old lady going to bed at like 9 because I'm like, I lived that party scene for 20 years. Like, I'm good.
Yeah.
So now it's kind of a little bit flipped and going backwards, and I really don't see the issue with it. And I feel like people that are judgmental about it have not experienced that chemistry thing that I'm talking about. I really don't think so. I think that if you get it, you get it. And when you don't, you have a lot to say.
Okay,
That's
say that
just
again.
my opinion.
You're
feel
saying,
like if you get
so
it,
then
you get it. And you can appreciate it. And it's like, cool, good for her, move on. If you don't understand it, you've never experienced it, you just have a lot to say about it. Oh, she should be ashamed of herself. She's got kids. Look at her, blah, blah, blah. You know, I feel like there's a lot of negativity and judgment that comes from somebody that doesn't get it.
Hello?
Oh, yeah. Let me lose you. I really feel like as women, if you know, you know. If you have felt that energy before, if you've experienced something like that, you can pat someone else on the back, do an atta girl, and move on. When you haven't and you're lacking in that sense and you really don't understand something, I feel like you become a little bit more judgmental and you have a lot to say when you really don't know.
What are you saying right now? Are you saying that you're feeling judgment, or you have felt judgment in this conversation, but you're also saying, who's it coming from? People that have not been through the situation? Is that what I'm gathering? Yeah. So like you're saying like other women are haters?
Oh my God, women are the worst, the biggest haters. You kidding?
But I thought there was the whole like pat you on the back, like, oh, that's amazing, Kelly. Like you found you a nice one. Like why is that? No. What is so okay? From what you just said, is the hater on the basis of they never had that experience? That's what you're saying? So it's in
a certain sense. I think when it comes to the whole age gap thing, and there are women that are, you should be ashamed of yourself or should be setting a better example, and all those nitpicky comments that I've seen various high profile people in relationships like that are women. Now, men, different. Women don't say the same things. It's like they get a pass because it's a man, right?
Well, doesn't Robert De Niro have like a newborn baby at 80 years old? I mean, isn't that the same? Isn't that the same thing? I just don't understand. Okay, so I said Robert De Niro. Yeah, it's weird. It's like Robert De Niro, he's 80 years old having a newborn.
Yeah, and so does Al Pacino. Like
Al Pacino, yeah.
So that's okay. But God forbid, Tristan Cavallari has a 25-year-old lip syncing boyfriend and the world goes crazy.
Oh, lip syncing because he's like a social media star. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is like, the age difference with like, what was it? A woman as a cougar immediately has always got a little bit of a second look. But I think dating is so interesting. And you make lots of points like this, Kelly, where it's like, sometimes it's easier to just judge on the sidelines, but sometimes when you're in it, you don't necessarily, somebody like Jennifer Lopez. It's like you keep trying. You may not get it right. Who said love was easy? You know what I mean? That's another thing.
Yeah, I really, she gets such a bad rap, and she's been trending so much for that This Is Me Now.
Oh, she had the movie and she had a documentary talking about the movie.
And like everybody like hates it is the consensus. Like everybody hates it. And my sister and I watched it, and my sister, who notoriously hates everything, like she actually didn't hate it.
Yeah.
And I thought I could see the metaphors in it. I could really kind of dig deep, but I am that way. I've studied film. I really like to get to the, meat and potatoes of it. And I really do appreciate the deepness of which she was being super vulnerable with that. And people just kind of take it at the top at face value and are making fun. And I think it's part of that because you don't get it. If you don't get it, you don't understand it. And it's just that it's easy to criticize something you don't understand.
Yeah.
And it's art. Like everybody's, version of art is different. And I've never been like a super hardcore J-Lo fan and whatever. And most of the horror stories you hear, right? Like
I've always liked her. I've always liked her, but
and whatever.
Yeah.
But I've always respected her and her hard work. And when I met her, I hated Mark Anthony. They were married at the time. And I've talked about this over and over. I thought he was like horrible.
Oh my gosh.
And she was really nice to me. And, her people were trying to make it difficult and I just didn't let them. And I just was like, no, you're going to get me. And that's how it is. And hi, let's go do what we got to do. But that was always my personality, like that's just who I am to do that. And she introduced herself to me. It was really nice. Mark Anthony, on the other hand, I will never be a fan.
Easy now, easy. Okay, let's not go on a tangent per se because we love Mark Anthony and even J-Lo. Here's what I'll say. Now, it's always tough for me because, maybe I have a bias because I really like her. But to what the point I think you're trying to make, Kelly, is you got to get up and dust yourself off and try again. Like, what was the alternative? J-Lo lives a much different lifestyle than so many people based on all the businesses and the career and the constant traveling. So here's the point. Everyone's life is different. So how you're going to, she's got the 2 kids, motherhood will look different. And have, dating will look different. But I think what I do value, and I really feel like this is what you were saying, is that she may not be doing it right, but she's trying. So how are you
doing it right?
Huh? And who is doing it right? Yeah. Well, and I think another thing too, and I don't want to keep on like, the same story, which is like when you were in your early 20s or 30s, it was different. But the reality is this: what you started off in terms of your dreams of that perfect, fairy tale situation, it doesn't always go. And if it does, that is great. And we hope that it will for everybody, for Jennifer Lopez included. But the other thing is like, you got to get to that point where like, if it doesn't, you have to dust yourself off and keep yourself open and have that vulnerability to find love again.
Exactly. God forbid we ever have a podcast that doesn't do something like this.
Goodbye.
I'm sure Ronnie had some really great points to add to that, but we're difficult podcasters. We live up to our name. We're done. Wow. That's amazing. Oh, that was amazing. What's even worse is like I keep looking for my phone and I'm like recording on it. Oh, I gotta go to bed. Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.